Welcome to the Wyoming Women's Business Center's 2022 webinar series. Today's presentation is Time Management, Beat Procrastination, and Improve Your Focus. I'm Christine Langley with the Wyoming Women's Business Center, and I'm going to be your speaker today. So you'll notice the Zoom webinar bar on the bottom of your screen, or maybe the top, just depending on your orientation. And I want to call special attention to the questions panel. If you have any questions during the webinar today, I'd like you to use that panel to communicate with me. Now, immediately following this presentation, we're going to launch a survey, and I ask you to just stay on the line for a couple extra minutes so that you can complete that survey, because it provides us, as well as our funding partners, with a lot of valuable information. Now, everyone on the call today is muted, and that's just to minimize background noise. So once again, if you have any questions as we go through our content, just type it into the questions panel. So we're going to get started with some quick information about the Wyoming Women's Business Center, and then we'll dive into our topic today, and we'll finish up with a Q&A at the end. This is a 30-minute format, and so we appreciate everybody joining us on what might be your lunch break. Now, this is being recorded, and so it's going to be available on our Zoom account to everyone that registered for this webinar. And I'll go ahead and email everyone a special link within 24 hours so that you can access the recording if you'd like to watch it again, or if for some reason you missed our live session. So feel free to share that link that I email with friends and colleagues as well. So I always like to begin with some quick information about the WWBC for those of you that are new to our webinars. The WWBC is a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to enable and empower Wyoming entrepreneurs. And of course, we have a special emphasis on women. And so we do our work through three distinct programs. The first is our business counseling and training program, which is always free. And this webinar is an example of that program. The second is our microloan program, and we offer loans anywhere from $500 all the way up to $50,000. And that's for businesses that have been denied from a traditional lending source. And then third is the Artist Development Center. And we run that in conjunction with our Works of Wyoming retail store in downtown Laramie. But what I really want to get across to you is that what we specialize in is micro enterprises. Now, what's a micro enterprise? Well, it's a business that has less than 6 employees. The majority are 1 or 2 person businesses, and they're businesses that we're able to launch for under $35,000. These are businesses like yoga studios and hairstylists, in-home daycare providers, marketing consultants, cleaning services, right? These are examples of our clients. All right, let's drop into our topic today, which is called the Pomodoro Technique. Now, the secret to effective time management is, I guess, thinking in tomatoes rather than hours, if you know Italian. So it may seem silly at first, but millions of people swear by the life-changing power of the Pomodoro Technique. So again, Pomodoro is Italian for tomato, and I'm going to give you the background on that naming in a minute. But this popular time management method asks you to alternate Pomodoros, which basically means focused work sessions with frequent short breaks in order to promote sustained concentration. And it'll also stave off mental fatigue. All right, so who should consider using the Pomodoro Technique? Well, I've listed it on your screen. You should try this technique if you find little distractions are often derailing your whole workday, or if you're consistently working past the point of optimal productivity. Maybe you have lots of open-ended work that could take unlimited amounts of time, like studying for an exam or research for a blog post, right? Or maybe you're overly optimistic when it comes to how much you can get done in a day. Aren't we all? Do you like gamifying your work and goal setting? And do you like tomatoes? All right, so what exactly is the Pomodoro Technique? Well, it was developed in the late 1980s by a university student named Francesco Ciarillo. So if you're in my age range, you're thinking, okay, not that long ago. And if you're not, you're thinking, wow, this is like an ancient technique that I haven't heard of before. Well, Ciarillo was struggling to focus on his studies and complete assignments. And so one day, after feeling really overwhelmed, he decided to just commit himself to 10 minutes of focused study time. And he needed a timer. Remember, this was the 80s and he didn't have a smartphone with a timer app. So he used a kitchen timer. And that timer just happened to be in the shape of a tomato. And he really didn't like the sound of the tomato technique. So he used the Italian word from his heritage for tomato, and the Pomodoro technique was born. Now, our 80s college student went on to then write a 130-page book specifically about this method. But its biggest strength is really its simplicity. And that's what I'm going to cover today. So step one is get your to-do list and grab a timer. Step two, you set your timer for 25 minutes and you focus on a single task until the timer rings. When your session ends, you mark off 1 Pomodoro and record what you completed. And then you can enjoy a 5-minute break. After 4 Pomodoros, you can take a longer, more restorative 15 to 30-minute break. Now, the 25-minute work sprints are really the core of the method, but each Pomodoro practice also includes 3 rules for getting the most out of each interval. So rule number 1, break down complex projects. Now, if a task requires more than 4 Pomodoros, it needs to be divided into smaller, actionable steps. And sticking to this rule is going to help ensure you make clear progress on your projects. Rule number 2, small tasks go together. So any tasks that are going to take less than 1 Pomodoro, those should be combined with other simple tasks. Tasks like paying some bills, setting a doctor's appointment, reading a business article, right? Those 3 could go together in one session, 1 Pomodoro. And then third, once a Pomodoro is set, it must ring. Now, the Pomodoro is an indivisible unit of time, and it can't be broken, especially not to check incoming emails or team chats or text messages. This is where the discipline comes in. So any ideas, tasks, or requests that come up should be taken note of to come back to later. In my workflow, I call that list my parking lot list. Anything that comes up that tries to interrupt me, I just make a note of it on my parking lot, and I'll get to it after my Pomodoro. Now, some of you may use a digital to-do list, and others may be still using pen and paper. And I want you to know that it doesn't matter. Just remember, once you start a Pomodoro, it must ring before you stop. Now, in the event of an unavoidable disruption, then I always encourage my clients to take your 5-minute break and then start again. The founder of this technique recommends that you track your interruptions as they occur so that afterwards you can reflect on how to avoid them in your next session. So ask yourself, were those interruptions internal or external? What can you put in place going forward to limit those interruptions? And remember, rule number 3 still applies even if you finish your task before the timer goes off. Because if that happens, you want to use the rest of your time for over-learning. What does that mean? Well, you can improve some skills or increase your knowledge. For example, you could spend the extra time reading up on professional journals or researching networking opportunities. So if this system seems simple, that's because it is. It's all about getting your mind in the zone to finish your tasks. And really, what makes the Pomodoro technique so effective is the arbitrary kind of silliness of using a tomato as a stand-in for units of time to get people to get things done. All right, what makes the method uniquely suited to boosting productivity? Well, first up, it makes it really easy to get started. So research has shown that procrastination actually has little to do with laziness or lack of self-control. What's really going on is we put things off in order to avoid negative feelings. So it's uncomfortable, right, to stare down a big task or project, especially one you may not know how to do or one that involves a whole bunch of uncertainty. And so because of that, we turn to, say, social media or Netflix, right? Instead, because we're trying to boost our mood, even if it's only temporary. Luckily, some of the same studies have also shown an effective way to break out of that avoidance cycle. And so the answer is to shrink whatever it is you're putting off down to a tiny, unintimidating first step. So let me give you an example. Instead of sitting down to write a novel, you might sit down to write for 5 minutes. If that's still too hard, then try just sitting down to edit a paragraph, right? Doing something small for a very short period of time is a whole lot easier than trying to take on a big project all at once, because activity begets more activity. So just start, even if it has to be something small. And that procrastination busting strategy is exactly what the Pomodoro Technique asks you to do. Break down your big tasks, projects, or goals into something you only have to do for the next 25 minutes. It keeps you hyper-focused on the one next thing you need to do, rather than getting overwhelmed by the enormity of what you're taking on. Don't worry about the outcome right now. Just take it one Pomodoro at a time. All right, if you've ever been interrupted when you're in the flow, then you know how difficult it can be to regain your focus. That constant stream of information pouring in via emails and team chats and social media notifications, right? Those demand more and more of our attention, it seems like, every year. And it would be really nice to blame technology for everything. And a lot of my clients try that with me. But what we know is that recent studies suggest over half of all workday distractions are actually self-inflicted, meaning we're pulling ourselves out of focus. Now, I understand that in the moment, it can be easy to justify these internal pulls, right? This email is just too important to wait. That subject line is in all capital letters, right? Or don't worry, it just took me less than a minute to check my Twitter account and it doesn't count, it's not a real distraction. But all those small interruptions, they add up. And it isn't just the time you lose on the distractions, it's also, taking time and energy to actually refocus your attention back to what you were working on. So after switching gears, your mind can actually linger over that previous task for up to 20 minutes until you fully regain your concentration, right? That's happened to all of us. We stop short, we read a quick email, and then whatever that urgent email said, we can't stop thinking about it. Right? We have to respond to it. It requires, several more emails, and all of a sudden we're derailed. So remember, indulging that impulse to check Facebook just for a minute can actually turn into 20 minutes of trying to get back on task. So the Pomodoro technique helps you resist all those self-interruptions, and it actually retrains your brain to focus. So each Pomodoro is dedicated to one task, and each break is a chance to reset and bring your attention back to what you should be working on next. All right, so when you're planning out your future projects, most of us fall victim to what I like to call the planning fallacy. This is the tendency to vastly underestimate the time needed to complete future tasks, even when we know that similar tasks have taken longer in the past. It's your present self imagining that your future self is somehow going to operate under an entirely different circumstance and time restraints. It's basically fantasy, right? It's fantasy land versus reality. And let's face it, most of us sometimes would rather operate in our own fantasy. But in the world of planning, we have to deal with reality. And therefore, the Pomodoro technique can be a really valuable weapon against the planning fallacy. And when you start working in short, timed sessions, time is no longer an abstract concept, it's a concrete event. It becomes a Pomodoro, a unit of both time and effort. So I want you to remember that this is distinct from the idea of 25 minutes of general work, right? We're not talking about, I'm going to work for 25 minutes and take a break. The Pomodoro is an event that measures focus on a single task or several simple tasks. So it's not just identifying a time that you're going to work and then a break. It's identifying the specific task you will complete. And what happens is the concept of time changes from a negative, something that's been lost, to a positive representation of events that you've accomplished. And Cirillo calls this inverting time because it changes the perception of time passing from an abstract source of anxiety, right, to an exact measurement, hopefully, of productivity. And that all leads to a much more realistic time estimate. Because again, in planning, we need to deal with reality. So when you use the Pomodoro technique, you have a clear measurement of your finite time and your efforts, allowing you to reflect and plan your days more accurately and efficiently. And with practice, you're going to be able to accurately assess how many Pomodoros a task will take. And then you'll be able to build more consistent work habits going forward. Now, every Pomodoro provides an opportunity to improve upon the last. And Cirillo argues that concentration and consciousness lead to speed, one Pomodoro at a time. And the Pomodoro technique is approachable because it's more about consistency than it is about perfection. Each session is a fresh start to reevaluate your goals, challenge yourself to focus, and limit your distractions. And so you can make the system work for you. So I often recommend that you motivate yourself to build on your success by setting a goal, maybe to add an extra Pomodoro each day. You could challenge yourself to finish a big task in a set number of Pomodoros. You could try setting a goal number of Pomodoros each day without breaking the chain. And let's face it, thinking in tomatoes rather than hours is just kind of more fun. So I encourage you to gamify this technique because it can help your motivation. All right, now while the 25 5-minute work break intervals are really the heart of the Pomodoro technique, there are a few things that you can do to make your Pomodoros more effective. First up, I want you to plan out your Pomodoros in advance. So this means taking 15 minutes at the beginning of your workday, or maybe at the end if you're planning for the next day, whatever reduces your anxiety the most, and plan out your Pomodoros. So you're going to take your to-do list for the day and note how many Pomodoros each task is going to take. Remember, tasks that will take more than 5 Pomodoros should be broken down into smaller, more manageable tasks. Smaller tasks like responding to emails, right? Those can be batched together in a single Pomodoro. And if you work an 8-hour workday, you want to make sure your Pomodoros for the day don't go over 16. Because if they do, you're going to need to postpone the least urgent or the least important tasks for later in the week. All right, next up, you're going to build overflow Pomodoros into your day. While an 8-hour workday technically leaves room for 16 Pomodoros, it's really best to build in a buffer of 2 to 4 overflow Pomodoros just in case. And you can use your overflow Pomodoros for tasks that take longer than you planned or for unexpected tasks that come up during the day. If you don't end up needing them, you can use those extra Pomodoros for learning or lower priority tasks that always get pushed to the end of your to-do list, because it's a lot less stressful at the end of the day if you have Pomodoros to spare than if you overschedule yourself and get behind, right? So this is that concept of under promise, over deliver. Do that with your Pomodoros so that you can feel successful at the end of each day instead of failure. Over time, you're going to get a better sense of how many high quality Pomodoros you're actually capable of completing in a day. And I'm here to tell you that it's okay if it's not a full 16. The vast majority of people, they aren't actually productive for the full 8 hours of a workday. And those who think they are, they probably just haven't been paying close enough attention. When it comes to Pomodoros, I want you to challenge yourself. And if you're a business owner or a supervisor, you can challenge your staff, but keep the focus on quality over quantity and be sure that you're adjusting for reality. All right, I want to encourage you to experiment with the length of your Pomodoros. For some types of work that require like extended periods of concentration, these are things like coding or writing or budgeting, right? 25 minutes may be too short. So you can try extended work sessions with longer breaks. There was actually an article published in The Atlantic in 2014 that reported on a variety of studies around this concept. And one found that a 52-minute focus and 17-minute break is the perfect balance. And others preferred 90 full minutes with a 20 to 30-minute break. Again, experiment with the length and really just decide for yourself. For tasks that you've been putting off for one reason or another, 25 minutes might be too long. If you're feeling a lot of mental resistance, or you just can't get yourself to stay focused for 25 minutes, it's all right. Try 15, 10, try 5 minutes, right? For most people, most of the time, that sweet spot is going to be somewhere between 25 and 50-minute range for peak concentration with a 5 to 15-minute break. So try mixing your intervals based on your available energy and really the type of work you have on your plate. And if you're starting to find that your concentration is slipping and suddenly you're scrolling through your Instagram feed, you don't know how you got there, that's a signal to you that your Pomodoro was too long. So shorten that next time. Another tip I like to give is to get away from screens during your breaks. Not all breaks are created equal, right? So if your Pomodoro work session happens on your computer, for most of us, that's true. Don't just switch over to Twitter or Instagram when the timer goes off. You need to give your eyes and your brain a break from the screen. That means your phone too, by the way. So stand up, move around, stretch, go outside, do a mini meditation, grab a snack, watch birds out the window, whatever you need to do to get away from that screen. If you work from home, like me, fold some clothes, clear off your kitchen table, go make your bed that you didn't do this morning. Whatever you do, your break is going to be much more mentally refreshing if you get away from that glowing hypnosis of your computer or your phone. And then lastly, I want you to consider using an app to really enforce your Pomodoros. And that's just because humans are fallible. So no matter how motivated you are at the start of the day, it's really hard to actually stick to your Pomodoros. So you may want to try holding yourself accountable with a break reminder app. I've also seen some supervisors try to implement the Pomodoro technique with their staff members. And again, just as a fun introduction or implementation of this, they send out the timer via chat, right? Via chat message. So everybody allows that notification to come through and they try to do the Pomodoros together in a team environment. It's another idea. All right, back to the app concept. The best ones really let you customize how long your work sessions are, also how obtrusive you want your reminders to be, and then how strictly you want your breaks enforced. So some of these apps will even lock you out of your own computer for like the duration of your break. And so I like to recommend Big Stretch for Windows and Break Time for Mac. But remember, this strategy began with a kitchen timer shaped like a tomato. So if tech solutions don't work for you, then grab a kitchen timer and your to-do list that's on paper, and you're going to do just fine. All right, guys, it's time for questions. So I want you to go ahead and type your questions that you have for me into the questions panel. And I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to do that. And so while people are typing questions, I'm just going to cover some closing information about WWBC and also our upcoming trainings for January 2022. So if you're interested in any of our services at the WWBC, like one-on-one business counseling with a coach like me, then I encourage you to register as a client for free by visiting our website at thewyomingwomen.org and clicking on our Sign Up Now button. It looks like this. It's a simple application, and then our staff will get in touch with you to quickly schedule an introductory meeting. So the WWBC is made possible through several funding partners. Our primary funding comes from the U.S. Small Business Administration, and their grant dollars are matched by the Wyoming Business Council. And so, of course, we're thankful for all the support of our partners. We're really excited for all of the educational planning that we're doing for 2022. And I'm looking, okay, guys, keep typing in those questions for me. Thank you. I also want to remind you that the WWBC is a standalone 501c3 nonprofit. And so every donation made to our organization is tax deductible, and it goes directly to our mission of empowering Wyoming entrepreneurs. And of course, you know, that's especially women through all of our programs. And I always like to remind people that every micro gift is important, just like every micro enterprise in a Wyoming community is important, because I don't want to live in a town that doesn't have a coffee shop or a yoga studio or a daycare or a pet groomer, right? And that's why it's really important to support economic developers like the Women's Business Center. So if you like the content that we share with you, then I encourage you to go to our website and consider a micro gift. You know, your $5 or $10 can really make a difference in the programming that we offer and the number of entrepreneurs that we can help. You don't have to be rich to start a business, and you don't have to be rich to engage in philanthropy that truly makes a difference in your local community. All right, guys, upcoming training, and then we'll get back to questions. So we have a training that is starting tomorrow, and I want to make sure that everybody knows about our Dream Builder Business Planning Program. It's an 8-week course with a graduation at the end. It's starting tomorrow, again, January 12th at noon. Encourage you to go to our website to sign up. If you have an interest in starting a business, or if you've already started a business, but you realize that you didn't do some succinct business planning in the beginning and you want to tackle that, this is a facilitated program being hosted by our business counselor, Jonathan Howdy-Shell. So I encourage you guys to sign up for that. Again, it's a free program. It's an online training, and it's going to be terrific. So we also have lots of other training webinars coming up this month. I encourage you to research those as well and get signed up. All right, I am going to take a look at our Q&A really quick, and it says, will these slides be made available after the session? Absolutely. This will be recorded, and I will email out that recording link to everyone. So if you want to check again and review it, you are welcome to do that. And then it looks like I've got a bunch in the chat here. Most of this is thank you, thank you. Okay, helpful, great. You're a big fan of the online timer. Some people are sharing some stuff. Terrific. Okay. Thanks for everybody's participation. I really appreciate it. And it looks like I've covered all of the questions. So thanks again for attending. I'd like you to stay on the line for just a couple extra minutes, complete our survey. We read every single one. It really does help us develop our training so that it meets your needs as business owners. So thanks again, everybody, and have a great week. Bye-bye.